You are listening to Insights with Kathleen. Please join me while I share my insights and experiences with the hope to inspire you to look inside of yourself for the answers that you already have. As with all information we receive, take what speaks to you and leave the rest. Welcome back.
Hey,
we are
guys.
on episode 12. Not that I'm counting, but I kind of am counting.
Yes, you are. You literally have a book that is like counting each episode.
No.
Not
Well,
that I'm counting, but I'm kind of counting.
kind of counting, but I got to keep track of what I'm talking about.
That's true. I'm glad you do because I don't. And sometimes I'll present topics and you're like, we already like covered this in depth a couple weeks ago. I'm like, oh.
It just must mean that, it's still something that's occurring for you, huh?
Yeah, we're just going through a thing. It's fine. I'm fine.
Hey, of course you're fine. You're more than fine.
Well. I'm not fine, but hey, we
No?
are navigating things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do share.
Okay, I will share. So, how do I put this?
Very carefully.
very, very, very carefully, I guess. So I've been, just doing some soul searching. I'm learning more about Sherry, and I hadn't in years, but now I am. And one thing that I noticed is, like for the past, like month ago or so, I was great. I was on a roll. I'm like, guys, do body scans. I felt like I was on top of the world.
Yeah, you were.
And then, boom, like, and it's one of those things where it wasn't one specific event that occurred. It was like, a lot of little events that happened. And like, one thing happened. And I was like, you know what? This is a little discouraging. That's fine. And then 10 more things happened. And I was like, I'm not okay. I am like feeling very broken. And I didn't take the time for myself to be like, hey, let's like process these things. So I kind of hit a wall a bit and I felt overstimulated.
Ooh.
I felt overwhelmed.
Aw.
And, for me, I always like, I don't know if I envied people, but I just kind of was like, wow, you can like hang out with X amount of people and do all these things and not feel fatigued. Whereas someone like me, I get very fatigued doing a lot of things at once. Like if I'm like, oh, I hung out with X amount of people or I did these projects, I usually am like, I need a couple days just to process what happened, whether good or bad. And it almost got looked down upon as like, wow, why do you like need so much time for yourself? That's so strange. I need to be around people. And for a while, I kind of was telling myself like, yeah, maybe it's like a negative thing that I do. Maybe I isolate too much when I get overwhelmed. But I don't know. That's why I'm like kind of coming to you. Like, when do you know, like, hey, I need me time, whereas, hey, I'm just pulling away from people. And also, does that happen to you when you get overwhelmed?
Well, you have a lot in there, Sherry. So let's see if we can just pull this apart a little bit, okay? First of all, let me just say, don't compare yourself with anyone else.
Okay.
All right? So you are your own individual gift to the world, just like anyone else listening. Each and every one of us, we are special in our very own way. And I'm not talking about Yellow School Bus special. I am talking about, that
Unicorn special?
Yeah.
There we go.
You're unique and you're magical in your own way, in your own right.
Oh, for sure.
And yes, everybody processes the world around them and the energy around them very differently.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, because you did ask me, how about you? Have you? Yes. I am definitely somebody who needs her alone time. Yeah. I need time to separate out what's me and what's someone else. Who, what energy am I carrying around that doesn't really belong to me that I'm going to invite to keep moving. And in my experience, generally speaking, and I'm emphasizing this generally speaking part, that I found, especially with young people, those who, as from your perspective, because you can only see it from your perspective, you don't really know what's happening in their lives behind closed doors, on and on. But from your perspective, it appears like, wow, they just could keep going and meet with these people. And you had said it, that they say to you, oh, no, I got to meet with people. Well, to me, that's a flag. Anytime somebody says, oh, no, I have to be with people. That right away, that flag is telling me they're afraid to be by themselves.
Yeah.
And that they haven't grown their relationship with self, with who they are or who they be or who they will be, right?
Yeah.
So, and they're, for whatever reason, they're avoiding it. you know, which I've kind of makes me feel sad. My heart hurts a little bit for them because, you know, the best company that any one of us could keep is company with ourselves.
Right?
Right?
I think I'm pretty cool. You're pretty cool.
Hey, I love me.
Yeah.
And I love my alone time. And I find a lot of joy in it. Now, it wasn't always that way.
Mm-hmm.
It really wasn't. When my very early years, I'd say probably my very young adulthood, well, even teenage, if I was to remember back that far, it was really hard to be alone. And it hurt a lot. Though I could be around people and still feel very much alone. And I'm sure there's people out there who can relate to that too. But I think that the reason I felt that way is because of the pain that I was carrying around inside of me from past experiences, right?
Yeah.
Things that were done to me that maybe I still felt victimized by. There was a level of shame that I was probably still carrying around, and or unworthiness.
Yeah.
You know, and then also let's pile in there a little bit of that. I needed somebody else's validation for me and for who I am, and just so that I can approach and live life. And sometimes it was about needing to be around people who appeared to like me so that I can like me.
I struggle with that too, especially like with self-validation, because, you know, I'll come to you or I'll come to somebody and be like, hey, I feel these things. Can you validate these things to make sure I'm right about these things? When really it should be like, you know, it's nice to have it, but it should be kind of like a, hey, if you know in your gut that this is, you know, correct, you know.
Well, I don't think that there's really anything wrong with that. You're kind of already doing the work, right? And then you're feeling a certain way and you're kind of feeling like this. And then you're like, oh, you know what? Let me just say this out loud and just see, like, is this distorted in any way? And just to get a feel for where someone else is. But as you're checking that out in the external world with maybe a trusted friend or someone, you still need to feel their response inside of you and how does that feel in you? Because even though we trust them and we think that they're sort of healthy, even when I say something, you know, you can't take it as like I'm the know-it-all, be-it-all, everything all, because I can't take that pressure. I just can't. But but the thing is it's our responsibility as individuals to be responsible for us and for even with the information that we're receiving in. So just because someone's saying that this is their perspective or this is what they believe to be true. Yeah. You can take it in, but you got to feel it out, like, and discern it. Like, okay, well, how does that resonate in me? Where are the truths for me in what they said? Oh, okay, I'm going to take that piece because that's the truth for me, but I'm going to leave everything else. Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of like our little tagline here, right? Yeah. It's just that, you know, take what speaks to you and leave the rest. Yeah. So, and that's really, I found great success in that in my lifetime thus far, is just to be able to grab different information from different sources, but then to kind of like feel through it and connect with my inner knowing and to say, oh yeah, so this is the truth for me, but the rest of that doesn't really resonate with me. You know, and it changes as we grow too. Yeah. Right? So the overwhelmed part that you're talking about, that comes back to feeling the feels, sure. I'm sorry to tell you, man. We're feeling the feels. Continue to feel those feels, and it is really about respecting yourself and loving yourself enough to just kind of like put the hand up and say, okay, what am I doing to myself, first of all, right? Don't judge it. Yeah, you know, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just something you're doing. So, yeah. But then you're noticing, like, all of a sudden you're feeling this level of overwhelmedness. Yeah, right? Yeah. That you then have to stop, take a breath. Yes. Okay, I need to step back from this because this is too much, whatever this is. Right, right. You know, and then how can I break it down into chunks? What can I really just put off until later? Mm-hmm. What can I let go of? What really needs my attention now? Right. Yeah. You know, and it's really hard when you're caught up in all of that. Oh, you're smiling. All right, I'll address the elephant in the room. So there was a romantic element to this. And I guess one of the things that I was concerned with is because usually I would kind of take alone time as something negative, like, oh, I'm pushing away people or something. Or maybe someone would frame it in such a way as, oh, you're pushing people away or whatever. So
I guess there was like this, somewhat relationship thing that I was having, and I was going through my funk, and I kind of asked the person, I was like, hey, should I like kind of take a step back, because I kind of feel overwhelmed, but I also don't want to be like, hey, I don't want to talk to you. So I guess that was a new element for me, and I didn't want to just leave that person blind. So I was just like, nah, let's continue. And then I got very overwhelmed, and I was like, I think I need some time to myself, because I'm not feeling great.
Well, I'm smiling because, I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate to this. You're in a new relationship, or maybe not yet defined relationship, but it's exciting. You're kind of digging the company that you're keeping, but you want to sort of keep that momentum going. But at the same time, you're kind of giving pieces of yourself up.
Yes.
To kind of help this other person, or to make this other person feel valued, or maybe there's a level of fear of that if you were to set this boundary of space,
yes,
right,
yeah.
space and time, that somehow that would turn that other person off.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so something that's taken me a very long time to figure out, and if this could help anybody, Brian Knox is really good on this topic. I know you were missing that name.
I know, I was. We're like low-key. Brian Knox, please sponsor us.
Brian Knox. He's such a cutie pie.
He hears his name in the night. He's like, someone's talking about me.
My ears are ringing. They must be talking about me. Anyway, it's kind of like relationship 101.
Right. Okay.
Is that first you have to show up for you in order for you to show up with for the other person. And sometimes that means about setting those boundaries so that you are taking care of you. You're getting the sleep that you need. You have the space that you need, so that you can totally show up as you.
Yeah.
Because that's what the person's interested in, right?
They're
not interested into some pansy who's just going to roll over because, they're saying, hey, show up for me today.
Do you know what those are called, Mom?
No, what are those called?
We call them simps.
Oh.
Yeah, so those are people, it could be a whatever relationship, but it's just kind of like a one-sided relationship where one person does a lot more for the other person, and it's unrequited. Mm-hmm. So say if I'm dating someone, and I'm like, hey, I will switch my schedule. I will buy you things. I will do all these things for you. And the other person's like barely showing up for the relationship. That's what we call a simp.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, there you go.
But I get the sense, though, that for this particular situation that we're talking about, that's not totally the case. It's just really the case is that you care so much about this other person, that you really want to give them your all. Yeah. But part of giving your all is making sure that you respect your own personal boundaries, right? And have that conversation just to say, hey, man, really been enjoying all this time we've been spending together, but I don't know about you, but I need a little me time. What do you say? And how about we just kind of like, we'll touch base later, or,
Give me 3 to 5 business days.
As long as you don't mail the pink slip.
Right? Yeah, right? Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I love that, though. I love that you said that, because I was talking to you previously about this, and you're like, oh, my gosh, alone time, especially like if you're in like, a relationship or budding or whatever it is, it's still very, very important. And I was like, oh, like, I'm still new to the whole I need alone time thing because of the connotation. But it's like, no, you're even saying like, oh, when I'm in relationships, I love to have my alone time. I value it a lot. And I'm like, wow, it's nice to have like a nice, like, positive spin on things, I guess.
Well, yeah. And I think that the important thing about relationships, whether they be romantic or friendship wise, that you really do need to show up as you. And excuse me, sometimes that means taking that alone time, but respecting yourself, setting the boundaries, and it's teaching people how to treat you. And it's not like you're what do they call it? Ghosting? Is it ghosting?
Yeah, ghosting. Yeah,
where you kind of just disappear and never say anything, and people are like, well, what the heck happened to that person? So you had the dialogue, you had the communication.
Oh, of course.
Right? And if that person, and it's also a test.
Yeah.
Not that I'm encouraging anybody to test other people, but it is a test or a testament to what kind of relationship you have. If that person cannot respect your request.
I've had that
And,
before.
right? And then give you the time that you need for you. Well, then there's a signal right there that maybe this is not the right relationship.
You are right, because I've had that in the past before where I'm like, I need some space.
Say Brian Knox. No, go ahead.
Brian Knox. I've needed some space before, and it was, I was just like telling a couple, like 3 different people, like, hey, I need some space. One of my friends was like, thank God you told me. I'm glad. I respect that you're doing that. I think that's great. I think that's super healthy. I will leave you be. And the other 2 people were like, how dare you do this to me? What did I do?
Right. So then that speaks to where they are emotionally,
Yeah.
right? And then to their emotional health. And when we're working so hard to become healthy ourselves, or to what we perceive as healthy,
Yeah,
right? Because that's subjective as well. But
Yeah.
but when we're spending all this time on ourselves and we're putting in all of this work and effort on ourselves, we want to make sure that the people that we're matching ourselves up with are kind of in the same place.
Yeah.
Or at least sort of kind of, I mean, and then somebody who's going to say, well, what's wrong with me? Well, what do you mean you need time for me? And then having like their nose bent out of shape or feeling a little some kind of way.
Yeah.
Well, then they have a lot more growing to do, right?
Yeah.
Would that be fair?
No, that'd be very fair. It's almost kind of like I guess you play it by ear, like, hey, how much time do I spend with this person? Because, listen, guys, I could even, take jabs at myself. I have been that person who's like, hey, I'm dating someone. Oh my God, I'm going to spend every second with them. And then you like burn the heck out.
Mm-hmm.
Or like you have some friendships where it's like, wow, I have not talked to you in a very long time. How are you? So I always I'm trying to find a middle ground of like, hey, I like spending time with you, but I also have to like check in with Sherry because I sometimes forget to do that. And I don't really know how.
Yeah, and that really should be your most important relationship, right?
Well, with Sherry?
Yeah, with Sherry.
Yeah, no, you are definitely right. And I don't know, because I think we're talking about like being, sensitivity wise, but yeah, do you ever just like, because now I've been going on this little spiritual journey and I've been going on it with you. And before, I would feel out energy, stuff like that, but it wasn't to like a huge extent. Now when I go anywhere, it's just kind of like I'm overstimulated, especially when there's more people now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, COVID, I'm not around a lot of people, but when there was a lot of people, I'm like, wow, I'm taking in a lot of stuff right now, and I can't. I know I had a friend of mine, like when she would go into a room or something and there was a lot of people, she was kind of like, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff going on. I was like, what do you mean? It's just people, we're just hanging out, whatever. It's like, yeah, but it's just like a lot of people, a lot of energies. And I wasn't sure what they meant until I kind of, got into the realm myself. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of stimuli around here. And I need a minute to take it all in.
There's I guess you call this a meme, where there's a picture for empaths going to Walmart and they're all dressed in spacesuits.
Lord.
Right?
It's so funny.
So, it is kind of funny. But what I've discovered recently is, because in the past, I would hear the message of, for that kind of thing, to put this big bubble around you so nothing comes in. Right? Yeah. That doesn't work nearly as well as, and I've shared this with you before, as pushing your energy out.
Yeah.
Right? So expand yourself, like envision, and it's really not rocket science, and it really doesn't.
Just a spacesuit, apparently.
Yeah. You just kind of close your eyes for a few minutes, take a few deep breaths from your nose and out of your mouth, into your nose, out of your mouth, and just envision like this auric field that's around you just pressing out and getting brighter. So anybody who would be coming near you is now going to be walking through this beautiful, purified, bright light, so that it automatically changes their energy. And if they're not in a space to want to have that energy tweak to match yours, they're just going to keep walking.
Interesting.
Like it is just the coolest thing ever. And then if you just stand in that light, that love, and you just keep pushing that and just pushing it from your heart center and just trusting and believing, and you stay there.
Yeah. Then
a lot of that will just either transmute and or match yours. And then if something does come through, you just welcome it to keep on moving. Oh, well, I welcome you, energy. Welcome.
Yeah.
Keep going. And I welcome you to keep going. Like, don't stick to me. You're just going to keep going.
I've done that a little bit before. Like, because you've been telling me about, like, hey, raise your vibrations. And I don't, like, I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, well, you kind of explained it now, but I didn't know what it was at the time. And then, like, I work at a store and I would see all these energies. And sometimes I'm like, oh, this energy ain't it, chief. And it's weird because at first I used to feel bad. I'm like, oh, I have to interact with everyone. But I was like, listen, you could acknowledge it's there. You could be like polite to this energy, but you could like keep it going. And whenever I'd have like energies that I thought were like a little, I would just expedite them super quickly. And then like different energies would show up. You showed up one time at my store and I'm like, wow, look at how high her vibrations are. I know she's somewhere around here.
Yeah. It's funny when certain energies show up to us, no matter how you perceive that energy.
Yes.
It is an opportunity, right?
Right.
There's a reason why it's showing up and that you're feeling it and you're seeing it. Whether it's an opportunity to send more light and love in the direction of that energy if it maybe doesn't feel so great to you. Because maybe whomever it is that has left it behind or who's carrying it, they may just need that extra boost, that little extra amplification of love to help them through whatever it is that they're journeying. I can't even say that word.
Journeying?
Yes, thank you. Along.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Be my translator.
Yeah, of course. Brian Knox and I will be your translator.
and so I think it's a very loving thing. We had talked about this before, where when you're, faced with those kind of energies, what do you do with it? You don't really need to say anything, but you can just really push your light and love out that way to them just from your heart space.
Yeah.
And do it like an experiment. Like, how much fun would this be to do it as an experiment, right? Just test it out. Test the waters out, right?
Oh, for sure.
You don't have to say anything to the person. This is all happening just with you and yourself.
Yeah.
Like a little love fest that you're going to have with the world, but you're the only one who's knowing that this is going on.
For sure, yeah.
And maybe talk to your spirit team and say, hey, let's play here. Let's have a little fun. So when this energy comes, just imagine from your heart space that this light is just coming out. The love above energy is just coming out of you, and you're just pushing it towards. You're just pushing it towards this heavier energy, and watch and see how this person, very minutely, but these little tiny nuances. Just look and see how behavior changes. Look and see how maybe the energy shifts, and see how that feels, and just play with it.
I think I love the way you explain it because I've been, you would tell me these things and I'm like, I'm going to try these because I like these little experiments. And weirdly enough, where I work, like, we have lines or whatever, I check people out. And, for some reason, when anyone would get in any other lines, they would have customers that were very, very difficult. But for me, on average, I would get like one every once. I would barely get them. And I was like, that's so weird. How come I never get anyone that bad? Like, yeah, some people are snippy or some people are in a bad mood. But, some people get, outright, I'm going to call your manager kind of screaming. And I'm like, that's weird. But now when you say it, it's just like, all right, if you raise your vibrations, then,
It matches.
It matches.
So, it's just funny how just people in general, like we don't even realize how energetic we really are. Like how we all feed off of energy and vibrations. Because the world we live in, that's how it exists, is through vibration, right? Way back when I was working at this job, and there was this brilliant man, like these people were like on the cutting edge of. Actually, it was so far ago. These people were creating the technology that we use now.
Wow.
Like with HDTV and
nuanced stuff.
The high def stuff and all that. Yeah. And it takes a long time for that to even get to market by the time they research it and they develop it. Anyway, so this brilliant scientist, something went awry with a conference room that he was going to use. Something that was like an innocent mistake, and who knows how it even happened. Yeah. But he has a history of where he'd show up at an administrative assistant's desk and berate them to the point where the administrator is in tears, like total tears. And this one administrator that I was working with, and it was kind of like a shared area, like a shared office. And loads of respect I had for her, because this woman was like a no nonsense. I don't take crap.
Wow. Okay.
But I found out that he brought her to tears. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So now
Ooh.
this problem happened, and he's showing up at my desk, and I'm sitting, and he's towering over me, and he is irate. And I mean, like, face red, irate,
my
screaming
God.
at me. Okay?
Yeah.
So now I have choices. Okay? In that moment, you have a choice. I can either match him, so then we'll have a screaming match.
Yeah.
I could just allow him to grow bigger in this anger that he has, and I can grow smaller.
Yeah.
Cry.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, there is an or. There's a third option.
There's a letter C.
There is. All you do is you stay neutral. This is not my.
Oh my gosh.
It's not my issue.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be the solution, but not really my.
It's not my thing to take on.
Not my. Yeah. That all of that.
That's all you.
All of that. So that's not me.
That's not. I don't know.
So I just allowed that person to have their space to feel their feels, and then I just sat there, very, very even, and I just looked at him and I listened, and then I said, I am so sorry for what you're going through right now. However, we will get it rectified. And I just said it very evenly.
Wow.
The man looked at me. It was like I cut him off at the knees. Like I had just thrown a bucket of water on his fire and put it out.
Wow.
So then he looked at me, and I can't recall whether it was right at that point or if he came back later, but he thanked me. Wow. But he thanked me basically for not crying.
Thanks for not crying.
No, but I think what it was is that because I was able to separate myself, my energy from his energy, recognize the pain, the trauma that he's now putting himself through, because nobody else did this to him. Yeah, there could be an issue, but there's many ways that you can manage through those issues, right? You can laugh at them. You can just kind of go, well, this is inconvenient, or, and be kind of civil. But, and I keep emphasizing he's so brilliant that sometimes I think he just didn't have that capacity. Yeah. And this is just how it was. The frustration just poured over. Yeah. So having that level of compassion and knowing he's separate from me. Yeah. And just because that energy is coming my way doesn't mean I need to receive it. Right. Yeah. Right? So I got to stay in my power.
That was good.
In my energy. Yeah. I stayed even. And that was my choice.
I love that.
Right. So I didn't fall victim to the onslaught. Yeah. And by me staying in my space, in my energy, and just very calmly coming back and saying, well, listen, we'll get that fixed for you, and we apologize for your inconvenience. Putting out his fire and then having him come back to say thank you, not just for fixing. That thank you was much more than that. The thank you was really for being so calm. Yeah. Because he did lose control of himself. He knows he lost control of himself, but he didn't know how to get it back. Yeah, of course. So then that was an extra service that by staying in my power. Now, I didn't fake it. So this was not a fake it till you make it. Like I wasn't trembling inside. He totally could feel
your energy.
My energy was right here. And I just kind of pushed it a little bit in his direction, just enough for him to be quiet so he can hear my very calm, very even.
I love that.
Hushed almost. Like, okay, well, I'm so sorry that this happened. We will rectify it. And then he was just like, huh. And then, of course, the other witnesses who were all cringing and biting their nails like, oh, my goodness, I can't believe this man is going off again. He's going off again. Yeah. How's Cathleen going to handle this? And then they were all marveling. We had a little party afterwards. So I'm like, yes, this is all that he needs. He doesn't need you to match. He doesn't need you to cower, because if you cry and you fall backwards, it just enrates it, makes him more angry. Yes. So I wanted to share that example with you. So it's kind of the same thing. So it's a fun little experiment, right?
I do.
Just because that energy is coming by and it's brushing by you, it doesn't mean you need to own it. It doesn't mean that you need to carry it. It's not yours to carry. Yeah. But it is. But you may have to stop every once in a while and say, okay, is that me or is that somewhere else? Is that me or is that somewhere else? And then if it's kind of sticking around, invite it to keep going.
I like that only because I feel like when I see media or when people tell me stories or whatever, and there's an encounter like that, they're like, yeah, and I just screamed at this person more, or I threw things, or I've even encountered, like, at places of work, not where I work now, but before, where someone's like, you know what, like, they'll just throw something or scream or whatever. And, like, I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'm not, but, like, I guess for me, I was like, I don't know. It's not going to help anything because, like, there's this person who was, like, kind of berating me. Berating me? Braiding my hair? I don't know. They were really rude to me, and I was working at my job.
Berating you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with those words, too.
And it kind of, I mean, it was not nearly as cool as your story, but, they were being rude to me very loudly, and they were screaming at me and calling me names, and, like, I guess where I was working, like, it's very open to the public, so... You want to know my power move? I said nothing. Why? Because I was very aware that everyone was there. And while this person was screaming at me, calling me names, saying all these things that got very red, all the customers were like, oh my God, why would you say that to this girl? She's just trying to do. And then she got really red and was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, and it's weird because it didn't affect me because I was like, I know she's just like that. I know that's like a separate issue and it's not me. I know I'm intelligent. But yeah, just sometimes, some people are like, yeah, you have to like get even or you have to like retaliate with even more. And like, I think sometimes we undervalue like, hey, just realize that's their stuff. You don't have to let it.
Yeah, and that comes into a bigger deal too. Like, what level of fear are they operating through?
Right.
So I, on a very basic human level, I'm working with special needs individual who is institutionalized because they really just cannot be out, not even with their family. They needed that much care.
Wow. Okay.
And I was 18. Okay, 18 years old, taking on this job at this residential school for the emotionally and mentally handicapped individuals, and this young man was known for really beating up on the staff.
Jesus.
Now, I just finished going through the training where they're saying you don't hit the students or hit, the residents here. You would restrain them. You follow certain doctor protocols that are put in place for their protection, for your protection, on and on.
Right.
So, my very first day there, this young man clobbers me.
In the face?
Yeah, right up in the head. Oh. I mean, like, I almost saw stars. Oh, no. And I had the staff screaming at me, hit him back. He's just going to do it again. Hit him back, hit him back, hit him back. And I'm like, no, like little Miss Goody Two Shoes here. No, that's not what the rules say.
That's not what the
that
rules
was not what the training that I received says.
Excuse you.
We need to follow the doctor protocol.
I hope you talk like that. Just like that.
Yeah, just like that. So I refused to do what the staff was peer pressuring me into doing.
Yeah.
And instead, I stood my ground. And then we followed the protocol. And the protocol basically is when he behaves in this manner that he's to be proned and then restrained. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that, so part of the proning is that he lays on his belly and then you're supposed to straddle him with his arms. His arms are down by his side.
Right.
And then you straddle. So you have one knee up against one arm, another knee against the other arm. And then somebody chooses to hold his legs because he'd kick.
Yes.
So I got him down on the ground. Like, he almost voluntarily went down. So I was a little suspicious.
You're like, wait, what? You want this? Okay, whatever.
So I got down and I did my part on it. And then somebody started to come for his legs. And as soon as they went on his legs, I noticed that he started to really accelerate in his behavior, his physical.
Okay.
So I yelled at them. I said, no, we don't need that. We're good.
Okay.
And so then he calmed down, held him there for the amount of time that the doctor had written the script for him to be held. And then from there on, he was my best bud.
Aww.
So really what it came down to is because I was new, he was afraid. Because the staff has been doing this to him whenever he acts out.
Yeah.
So now he was my new best bud. Somebody who took 2 or 3 people to restrain him when he would be upset.
Yeah.
Just little old me. And mind you, when I was 18, I was
a
like a
little
whole
thing.
120 pounds
Jesus.
at 5'8", right? So
you were tall.
I know, I got shrunk. So it'd be like, he would do something and I would just look at him and say his name and I kind of would just point and he'd just go down and I barely would have to do anything. But it's all because of fear.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with these people, you know,
Right.
showing up or behaving in the manner they're behaving in. I mean, some of it could be frustration. It could be a multitude of things. But the bottom line is when you break it all down, it's fear. It's a level of fear somewhere that's driving all of this, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because it's definitely the opposite of love. And
Yes.
love is all those other things that we like to call good,
Yeah.
right? And then the fear we all call bad, though I prefer not to label because it's all part of the spectrum. Without the contrast,
Yeah.
you know, how can we really enjoy the good, right?
Exactly.
Or what we say is good. But coming back to like what you were saying earlier and about the overwhelmness, because I do want to bring this back around.
Of course.
Because this is a really important message too.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people could get from it, Sherry. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
But when you are, let's say, when you are
Experiencing it.
exploring. So thank you for the experience part because it got me to exploring.
All right.
When you are exploring a new relationship and there's that level of excitement going on, right? And
Yes.
and all you can do is think about this person and you're kind of feeling like that they're only thinking of you because they're reciprocating.
Yeah.
And that's all going on. Just be sure to be loving of yourself during that and know that, hey, before I can show up in this new relationship or any relationship, I need to show up for me first.
Of course. Yeah.
And then by doing that, you're actually giving that other person an opportunity as well to say, well, yeah, I'm going to show up for you as well by respecting that you have this particular boundary and or need where you need to just have a little bit of time alone.
Yeah.
And then it also encourages them to do the same.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's very healthy. That really takes it to a I'm gonna probably get this phrase wrong, but a intra type relationship.
Interpersonal.
Well, kind of. It's not independent. It's not codependent. It's not dependent. But it's kind of like that mix between where you're two separate people, but still coming together to have a relationship.
Right.
So, and that's really what you want. You want to be your own person first.
Right. Yeah.
So that you can show up as you.
Yes.
And then you have the third part of that would be the relationship, right? So it's two individuals showing up to make this third person almost, which is the relationship.
Right.
And that's the ultimate goal. That's really what we're all, I believe, anyway, is shooting for. I know some people might think I'm full of it, but that's
not full of it. No, I think that's really important because, you know, just like navigating as a young adult, like I think I don't know, it depends on, you know, the person obviously, but when I would be, you know, around like, you know, some of my friends and like at one point, like all 10 of my friends somehow were in relationships and I was the only one. And it was just funny because a lot of them, it would be like they're just one person now. And I'm like, oh, and I guess I kind of just in back of my mind, I'm like, I guess you just turn into one person, you turn into one blob. I don't know, but I had been single for a bit that I'm just like, well, I want to be independent and do my own thing. And I guess I'm trying to still navigate that like, hey, you're here, they're here, and then we come together and this is cool, but we still are two different people. We are not a blob.
No, and for those who are listening, I know this person that Sherry's kind of referencing, but we're not referencing, and a lovely being. And that person is very independent person as well. So
Yes.
so I think by you putting it out there to say, hey, I need this space, I think you've given them permission to show up for themselves as well. And I bet that person's extremely thankful for it.
And I have like one thing to know before we wrap up.
Please.
So one thing that you would say to me. No. Note. Okay. Note. So one thing I will add, and like, you know, this could be I'm just gonna make it general to anybody.
Sure.
You know, two people, a relationship, whatever. And you would always have this theme of saying, hey, this particular person is driving it. Stop trying to drive it. Just let that individual like drive it. So like what do you mean by that?
Okay. So
because I do not know what that means.
Well, I think you're speaking specifically of your situation.
Yeah.
You know, and really, all right. So you have a pursuer and you have the pursuee.
E. Okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how else to put this for
That's
you.
fine. Yeah.
So generally speaking, when, in a heterosexual type, I really have such a hard time saying that word. Relationship, it's usually the guys will tend to pursue. I mean, not to say that women wouldn't, but
Yeah.
please no, I'm not a sexist, but
You're just a heterosexual.
yeah, I'm not gay. You were waiting for that.
I was.
That the guy tends to be a little bit more of the driver.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, me specifically, I prefer that. Right.
I know you do.
Right. Because then, if you know that the guy's vested and he's driving it, then at least, I kind of know my role is well defined. I don't have to think so hard.
Right. Yeah.
That's just the lazy part of me. No, I'm just teasing. But for the type of relationships that you may be pursuing.
Say it. It's homosexual.
I can't. I'm such a homophobe. No, I'm kidding.
I'm totally kidding.
So in a homosexual type relationship, at least with what I see that you're experiencing, somebody else may be taking the reins on that, right?
Right.
So then they're driving it. They're deciding. So it's so hard to explain to her because this is really specific to your situation when I made that comment. So it's just knowing that this other person may be a little bit gun shy in some areas because you were friends first, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm sorry. I'm going to be telling your stuff here a little bit.
That's fine.
Okay. So you were friends first and you were trying, but then that person's put their hand up and said, yeah, no, not right now.
Yeah.
Right now, can we just be friends?
Yeah.
And that could be just because that person had some areas that they wanted to grow in or they wanted to explore, and they just felt that they couldn't do that if what you had going on was different.
Yes. Right.
Right. And or there could just be something else there. We're just not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But so time goes by, you're building this friendship with this person, and you're already thinking, "Wow, we're friends. We're just friends. We're friends. We're friends." But then next thing you know, your peeps are noticing that this person is flirting hardcore with you. Okay, and you're like, "La la 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 la. I'm just Cherry, and I'm here. La la la. I don't know what you're talking about. She flirting with me, you know."
That's so good. That's verbatim what I was doing.
So, but this person had a change of heart, or they've grown in the area that they needed to, or they've worked through whatever, and now their heart is open.
Yeah. Okay.
And they were feeling more comfortable in this relationship that the two of you were having, even if it was a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So then now they're like, okay, I'm going to show up for you in this other way, right?
Yeah.
So that's making that person a driver because they're the ones who needed a little more time and a little more space. So they were kind of driving it. So then also them pulling back.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So to me, that would make it the driver. So now when you stepped in and you said, oh, hey, I'm going to say I need a little Sherry time. So now you're taking the steering wheel and you're driving a little bit. And now you're just going to give a little bit of space so everybody could still be healthy and, be them and enjoy their alone time. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I guess when I heard it, it's almost like the effect of that cliche where a guy or somebody moves in and then their girlfriend or whomever is like, hey, I'm going to leave a toothbrush. I'm going to leave it this. I'm going to leave it that. And then you blink and then they moved into your house. That's kind of like what I took it as at first. I was like, I thought I was driving this. Am I not driving this? What's going on? It's like, no, just let it go.
No, and it could have just been my choice of wording, and I do apologize for that.
Oh, no.
And I am totally relating this to my own personal experience.
Yeah.
So knowing that when I was younger and dating, which I don't really have these issues. I don't really have these issues anymore because I believe I worked through them all.
That's good. Good.
Yeah, right. Good. Yay, pat me on the back. Is that initially when I was first dating, like in my 20s or whatnot, I would do a dance. Like I had this, it was a longtime friend for a while who used to tease me about how I would dance around things. And I never understood what they were talking about. But then when I stepped back after hearing their words, discerning the information and what works for me, I'm gonna keep, what I'm gonna let go of. And then I started to see what they were seeing. So whereas like I would be evasive on certain things when I was really uncomfortable about something in the relationship.
Okay.
You know, so having the experience of being sexually abused as a young girl, having those physical relationships, you know, it was like I needed to feel safe if I was going to have that. So there'd be a certain dance I would do when I felt like the guy was going to probably put me in a situation I just wasn't ready for.
Right.
So I never realized that I was doing it until this other person kind of pointed it out to me. So, but then I was the driver. Because you know, I'm the one who pull away, or I'm the one who would come forward and then I'd pull away. I never knew I was the driver until, you know, upon reflection and looking back. So in your situation, and I'm not saying that this is true of your friend, that any of these, that they've had any of these experiences that I'm talking about, but I could see some of that driving happening, the pulling back, now the coming forward. And
you know how I know you're right? Because they physically drive my car. So they literally are the driver. So there we go. We solved that mystery, and I didn't even realize that was happening. For like,
that's about control, a little bit of control, and some of that means about being feeling safe.
Yeah,
right, and that's why I would be the driver. So way back then, it was about finding a way where I can integrate and be a part of society and part of this experience and still feel safe. So, yeah. So, but maybe that's a topic for another time. Sherry, thank you so much for sharing this question and all of this with us.
Oh, for sure. Thank you so much. I feel very good.
Oh, good. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We hope you join us again. Bye. Thank you for tuning in. Remember that you are bigger than anything that you're going through or anything that is happening around you.